Hello Guardians, in today's video I will be covering some of the weekly reset items for this week. We're going to be covering quite a few things in this video. Now we're first going to take a look at the weekly Eververse Bright Dust items, and this will include both the front page and the secondary page. Then following that we're going to take a look at Xur's weekly inventory, and this is going to include all of his exotics, his weapons, and his armor rolls for this week. And then we're lastly going to look at 801's inventory. And for her inventory, we're going to be looking at her shaders and her armor. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, make sure that you stay tuned into this video, as I will be covering that later on in this video. But for now, let's look at the Eververse items. So for the Eververse items on the main page, firstly pick up your free Bright Dust. This will be available all the way up into the launch of the Final Shape DLC. Now for the items on the front page, in the first row, the first item we have is a shader, and it's the Whispered Sheen. Then we next have another shader, and it's the Copper Tone Patina shader. After that we have a Transmat effect, and it's the Ossified Entrance. We then have an ornament for the Drang Baroque sidearm, and it's Alone to be Joined. And lastly, we have an exotic emote called the Dance Off. Alright Guardians, let's move on to the secondary Bright Dust page. So on the secondary Bright Dust page, the first item we have in the first row, we have an exotic emote, and it's the Let Me Investigate. We then have 3 universal armor ornaments. It's boots this week, and for hunters, it's called the Vanguard Dare boots. For Warlocks this week, we have the Symmetrist Balance boots. And finally for Titans, this week we have the Star-Crossed Footsteps. Moving on from there, we have an exotic ghost shell called the Photoelectric Shell. We then have an exotic ship called the Wanderer's Wings. After that, we have an exotic vehicle called the Externalization. After that exotic Sparrow, we have an exotic ornament for the exotic Thorn Hand Cannon called the Essentialism. This is a very cool exotic ornament. As you can see, it has a very cool Root of Nightmares aesthetic to it, and some of the surfaces on this exotic ornament do also change over time. Very cool. And the last item in the Eververse Bright Dust store, on the second row, we have a ghost projection called the Spicy Ramen Projection. Alright guys, so for the final row in the Eververse store, we have the Flare row, and the first item we have is a transmat effect, and it's called the Chrysalis Entrance. The next transmat effect is the Champion Entrance. And the final transmat effect is the Illicit Transmat Effects. Then we have shaders, and the first shader we have is the Coleoptera shader. After that shader, we have the Jungle Viper shader. After that, we have the Bruised Blush shader. And the last shader for Eververse this week, we have the Amethyst Veil shader. This is one of my favorite shaders in the entire game. It has a very nice black look to it and a dark blue accent on it. Okay Guardians, that's it for the Bright Dust items this weekly reset. Now let's take a look at Xur's items this week. Alright Guardians, so Xur this week is going to be over on a tower and he's going to be near Saint 14. And just in case if you guys are uncertain on how to get to Xur over on the tower, I'm going to show you guys a quick route to help you guys get to him. Now that you guys know how to get to Xur this week, let's now inspect Xur's items. Now we're first going to take a look at the exotic items from Xur this week. However, firstly, you'll want to make sure that you pick up your exotic engram. This will cost some legendary shards, but not much. And additionally, make sure that you pick up the Genealogy quest. This will also grant you an exotic cipher, which you can then use to claim yet another exotic engram. Alright, so for the first exotic, we have the Lord of Wolves exotic shotgun. The perk on this shotgun is Release the Wolves. When you long hold your reload, it will greatly increase the rate of fire and shoot in full auto. And the intrinsic trait on this weapon is Shrapnel Launcher. Fires a powerful short-range burst of solar damage. Now the Lord of Wolves is nowhere near as good as it used to be. It used to be very dominant in both PvP and PvE, but now you'll mainly see it being used in PvP, and it's a decent shotgun. Now after that we have the exotic, the Liar's Handshake. This is one of the best Arc Hunter exotics in the game. Now the perk on this exotic is Cross Counter. Using your arc melee ability or being hit by a melee attack will allow you to follow up with an extremely powerful melee counterpunch that will heal you. Now what makes this exotic so strong is that not only will this exotic heal you after you punch a target and then you punch him again, but that secondary punch will also deal massive damage. And this week has a really nice roll on it. It has 26 mobility, 18 discipline, and 12 strength, as well as 7 resilience, 2 recovery, and 2 intellect. This is a very nice exotic, and you should definitely pick this up this week. After that, for Titans, we have the ACD/Zero Feedback Fence exotic gauntlets. As you can see, this is a very spiky roll, and you should automatically pick this up for that reason. It has an insane 30 bump in resilience and 23 bump in discipline, as well as 2 mobility, 2 recovery, 7 intellect, and 2 strength. Now the perk on the ACD/0 feedback fence is Fury Conductors. Melee hits grant armor charge, and you take less melee damage while you have armor charges. Taking melee damage will cause you to emit a burst of damaging arc energy that will jolt targets, consuming your armor charge and dealing more damage based on the number of stacks consumed. And the last exotic we have is the Aeon Soul exotic for Warlocks. This is a very good Warlock exotic for support based builds. Now this role is decent, it's not amazing, but it's alright. It has 17 mobility, 4 resilience, 15 recovery, 2 discipline, 10 intellect, and 22 strength. Now depending on whether you use Sective Force, Sective Vigor, or Sective Insight, it will give you different bonuses for not just yourself, but also your team. Alright, so moving on to the weapons from Year this week, we first have our Dire Promise with Osmosis and Overflow. This is a good PvE hand cannon. If you're interested in making any Grenadier style builds, this is good because Osmosis will change this weapon's damage type to your grenade damage type. So for example, if you're on Void and use your grenade, it will change the Dire Promise to Void damage. And it also has Overflow, so if you pick up any special or heavy ammo, it will double the magazine, which is nice. We then have the Annual Skate Solar Hand Cannon. This is an amazing PvP role on this hand cannon. It has opening shot to improve your accuracy and range on the opening shot of an attack, as well as slide shot, which will partially refill your magazine when you slide and boost your range and stability. It also has accurized rounds, hitmark HES sight, and a handling masterwork. So definitely make sure you pick that up. We then have the Blood Feud submachine gun, and it has elemental capacitor and ambitious assassin. After that, we have a truth teller with disorienting grenades. Now, if you don't have any void grenade launcher with disorienting grenades, you definitely need to pick this up because blinding grenades, although they have been nerfed, they're still viable. And this role right here has quick draw, grave robber, and the disorienting grenades, so not a bad role overall. After that, we have the death side, shotgun. Now this role has demolitionist and dual loader. This isn't a great role, you can definitely skip this. And after that, we have a great PvP role on the Blast Batu. This role has snapshot, sights, and quick draw. This is a great PvP role. Snapshot will greatly increase your ADS speed, and quick draw will allow you to draw this weapon very quickly, so you can swap to it and knock out some guardians. Pretty good role. And the last weapon we have is the Memory Interdict. This role has Wellspring and Surplus, nothing amazing. Now moving on to the second page, the last exotic we have, and it's a weapon, it's the Hawkmoon exotic hand cannon. Now this role has heavy grip, which will increase your stability, but also decrease your handling speed, and quick draw, which is good for PvP because it will allow you to swap this weapon instantaneously, which is very useful. Now in the magazine, it has alloy magazine, which will increase your reload speed when your magazine is empty, and polygonal rifling. Now this isn't the greatest role on the Hawkmoon. There are much better perks you can get on the Hawkmoon for PvP, but overall not a bad role on the Hawkmoon. Now we're lastly going to take a look at the armor this week. So firstly, because I'm on the Hunter class while looking at this, we have the Catch Killer's Grips. Now this role isn't great. It has 2 mobility, 14 resilience, 10 recovery, 2 discipline, 24 intellect, which is nice, and 2 strength. This is a decent armor role if you're going for any like intellect based builds like Celestial Nighthawk or Orpheus Riggs, so you might want to pick that up. Now for the chest, we have 10 mobility, 14 resilience, 2 recovery, 6 discipline, 16 intellect, and 2 strength. Once again, not the greatest role, but like I said, this will be good for intellect based builds. Now, you don't need to look at the class item because if you don't know, class items from Xur don't provide your characters any stat bonuses, so they're pretty much irrelevant, so we're not going to be looking at the class item. Now for the helmet, we have 10 mobility, 2 resilience, 12 recovery, 8 discipline, 2 intellect, and 18 strength. Not a great role, although it is decent for melee based builds. And the last armor piece for hunters this week over on Xur, we have 2 mobility, 15 resilience, 12 recovery, 16 discipline, 9 intellect, and 2 strength. This is alright. It has a good balance between resilience, recovery, and discipline, but it's a pretty low overall total, so you can pick it up if you see fit. Alright, Titans. For the gauntlets, we have 13 mobility, 2 resilience, 11 recovery, 7 discipline, 2 intellect, and 16 strength. This is not a good roll in my opinion, and you can definitely skip that. Now for the chest, we have 22 mobility, 6 resilience, 2 recovery, 2 discipline, 12 intellect, and 12 strength. Once again, not a great roll, and I would skip this as you do not really want mobility on Titans unless you're playing PvP. So if you're a PvP player, you might want to pick these up, but overall, not great roll so far. For the helmet, we have 2 mobility, 12 resilience, 12 recovery, 10 discipline, 2 intellect, and 13 strength. This roll is not great either. And lastly, we have 10 mobility, 12 resilience, 2 recovery, 2 discipline, 8 intellect, and 16 strength. Not a great roll either. So overall for Titans this week, unfortunately Titans, you might just have to sit out this week because the armor is not great for Titans. And last but certainly not the least, over at Xur's inventory for Warlocks this week. Warlocks have an insane piece of gauntlets. It has 2 mobility, 2 resilience, a whopping 30 recovery, which is amazing, 14 discipline, which is decent, 2 intellect, and 16 strength. This is an amazing piece of armor for Warlocks this week, as Warlocks are very dependent on recovery as well as discipline, and there's a pretty good amount of it here. Now for the chest, we have 2 mobility, 12 resilience, 12 recovery, 6 discipline, 7 intellect, and 14 strength. This is a horrible roll. You can skip this week, Warlocks. For the helmet, we have 19 mobility, 6 resilience, 2 recovery, 13 discipline, 2 intellect, and 10 strength. Now, just like I said with the Titan armor, this might be good for PvP, but overall this isn't a great roll. And lastly, for the boots on Warlocks, we have 6 mobility, 13 resilience, 6 recovery, 12 discipline, 6 intellect, and 6 strength. This is a horrible roll. Aren't you guys? That's it for Xur's weekly inventory this week. Now, for the last segment of this video, we're going to take a look at 801's inventory. Alright, for 801's weekly inventory this week, I first want to start off by saying you can go ahead and skip the armor from 801 this week, as it's pretty bad. As you can see here, there's nothing of real value here. However, for the shaders, this week she has a returning shader that I actually need to pick up myself, and this is the Valkyrie Zero shader. This is one of the best shaders in the game. It's such a nice, clean, sleek, black and orange shader. This is truly one of the best looking shaders in the game, and I'm definitely going to make sure that I pick this up. She also has 2 other uncommon shaders. Firstly, we have the new Pacific Sync shader. And the last shader this week is the War Cult Rain shader. And there you have it, Guardians. That concludes today's weekly reset video. I really do hope that you guys enjoyed this video. And of course, drop a like on this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you want to see any more content. But for now, I'm going to catch you guys later. See ya.